Last week, I introduced you to a Quincy family who was renting a home that was being held up by jacks. The windows and doors didn't lock, ceilings were caving in, and there were holes in the foundation. The home was condemned by the city, and then they were left homeless. Scenarios like this don't just happen overnight, though. The home had deteriorated throughout the years of neglect. The landlord, Chris Bighouse, is no stranger to the city officials. He owns a number of what you might call less desirable properties. We wanted to know, why haven't city council members done more to rein in derelict landlords in the Gem City? And what kind of an ordinance might it take to keep this from happening again?
It is the aldermen that have the power to decide what direction our city goes.
But it's also the aldermen who have refused to act. Quincy City Council members have rejected at least 2 ordinances in recent years that would have tightened the city's rental guidelines. Lisa Wigoda with the Safe and Livable Housing Committee wants a basic ordinance. It would involve some kind of small annual fee for landlords, and every rental property would be registered with the city. It could also include some kind of inspection before a new tenant moves in.
There's not a policy in Quincy that other cities seem to have.
Right now, the city has no idea how many homes or apartments are being rented at any given time. I went to Mayor Mike Trope to get some answers, and while he says he's in favor of some changes to the city's ordinance, the council has never been agreeable.
No, my first year as mayor, I did propose some changes to the housing ordinance, and it was shot down.
Mayor Trope says there seems to be a fear among the city council members about government intrusion and too many regulations.
The fear was, what's next?
But through public property records, we found about half of the council members own at least one rental property, and some own multiple. We checked on several of the properties and found them to be in good condition. The mayor tells me he believes about 98% of property owners in Quincy follow the rules. And yes, there are rules already on the books.
It's our minimum housing standard. It's interesting because that's been around for a couple decades. No one, a property owner, a tenant, we've had no complaints that the minimum housing standard is too restrictive.
Those standards include doors and windows that lock on the first floor, water in the kitchen and bath, and heating that can maintain 68 degrees. There is one catch for the standards. You have to be a tenant or property owner to make a complaint with the city, which would then trigger an inspection. And the city inspectors don't base anything on cleanliness. Trump says now more than ever, the city is working with social service agencies like Two Rivers Regional Council and the Safe and Livable Housing Committee to spotlight derelict properties.
You know, we've taken some landlords to court.
Landlords like Chris Bighouse, the owner of the property we showed you last week. Andrea Minetti told us she originally wanted another property. She says Bighouse told her it wasn't ready, though. He had her move into this house, the one that didn't meet the city's minimum standards. That's how she ended up in these conditions and ultimately homeless after it was condemned. Bighouse is no stranger to city inspectors. We found a warrant was issued by the 8th Judicial Circuit for Bighouse earlier this month, and he paid $761 in fines and fees. And then just this morning, Bighouse was in the Adams County Court. We talked with Bighouse by phone and text to schedule an interview, but he canceled that interview at the last minute. So our team went to the court this morning to track him down. We asked him about some of his properties that don't meet the city standards.
I think that's a misconception. I'm going to be 100% in compliance with the city of Quincy. I don't think I have structural issues in any but maybe one of my properties, so I disagree with that.
He told us he doesn't believe the city is actually backing landlords enough. He says oftentimes when homes don't meet the standards, it is the tenant who has removed things like smoke detectors.
I could walk into every property in the city of Quincy, including yours, and I could find things that you're not up to standard with.
He also says tenants have changed over the years and not for the better.
You know, not all of them. I got some great tenants, but the bulk of what I'm dealing with right now is very frustrating.
Bighouse is due back in court on January 4th and will, of course, continue to follow the story. And we do want to reiterate, the majority of landlords within Quincy maintain good properties. I've spoken with other landlords in town, and they primarily fear that once city government starts adding regulations or inspections, it could spiral out of control. And for tenants, it's important to remember the basic standards are already on the city's books, and it's up to you to alert inspectors after you've exhausted talks with your landlord.